Did you know there used to be EXP loss on death from bosses? Ever wondered what Nexon was thinking when they implemented certain boss mechanics? Whoa, animated background. Welcome back. This is just a reminisce on boss mechanics that were patched out based on memory and anecdotes from veteran Maplers. While min clears today are still impressive, min clears back then were a whole different type of beast. Starting off with an old but the most infamous, Magnus. On release, Magnus was a hacker trap, since it was literally impossible to do enough damage with the damage cap. Tyrant Capes became a telltale sign of a cheater. Even when comp clears were more common, there were still anti-cheat mechanics for a good while. Deal damage too fast or too slow. Defeat Magnus a little too fast. No drops. Over the years, every mechanic of Magnus was nerfed heavily, and now Magnus is just a shadow of his former self. Matter of fact, over-tankiness was the case for a lot of bosses on release, even today, so I won't go over them too much. But a funny one I wanted to quickly mention was on-release Cygnus. While Cygnus technically only had 2.1 billion HP, there was a silly mechanic where she kept healing 1 billion HP at a time. Players initially thought this was some sort of mechanic that had to be worked around. But nope, she just heals 1 billion HP 40 times. On to more of the mechanics themselves. Crimson Queen's fire used to linger after defeating her, so without constantly healing, it was possible to die before breaking the box and looting everything, especially with a lot of fire debuffs stacked up at the end of the battle, and being forced to only regular attack the box back then. In the first room of the Princess No boss fight, the whale Mikagami used to randomly teleport the player around the map when they damaged it. With a summon though, the fight often looked like this. Oh boy. Old Lotus. A boss Nexon fixed by deleting and completely reworking. Phase 1's map gimmick used to be this spinning laser of death. If another player's computer took too long to load in, they could spawn on the laser. Hey, what did I miss? Since the laser speeds up and slows down, for those that don't have a good connection, the laser does this. Oh. Whoa! Just kidding. Reverse. Oh! Phase 2 and 3 included a mechanic which players called platforms. Various platforms drop from the sky, which the player must stand on before the floor is electrocuted. However, whenever only one platform falls, two disasters could transpire. It either looked like this, or this. Note, this was released before 5th job, so no flying with Blink to cheese it for everyone. And, for bosses back then, the debris and meteors spawned instantly without indicators like these. The first Lotus clear in KMS required abusing a bug with Magic Guard. 2 years after release of struggling and abusing a bug, the party was handsomely rewarded with 1 S-Core. Lucid Phase 1 had unfair mechanics which made many Maplers consider it harder than Phase 2. Golems used to block players way before visually slamming down. The golems also received a fixed amount of damage, so line story skills with good AoE were required to clear them efficiently. Also, Lucid's forced random teleport worked a little different back then. It's similar to how it is now, except she was able to cast it during Dragon Breath. And lastly, in both phases, while the bomb ability used to only spawn on one player, there were no dream safe zones. Like a lot of boss mechanics, Nexon didn't really consider solo runs, so to survive solo, an iframe was required. Funnily enough, if someone in a party avoided the bomb's damage with an iframe without spreading the damage out to nearby party members as intended, the bomb was passed to another player with the same rules, acting as a clever punishment for trying to cheese the test. Ever since Nexon added meteors to Magnus, it's been their favorite mechanic to add to any boss they can. While today's Dark Knell is cluttered enough, Dark Knell used to have constant smaller meteors raining down as well, which often filled the screen when the big meteors spawned. Similarly, the meteors in Gloom used to continue to rain when the player was in the fear state, unlike today when it's like, Fear back then felt like players were essentially forced to trigger their fear state during the start of the platform phase, and even then, survival was barely guaranteed. Old Bloom was the only boss I ever needed to ring swap to the turtle ring for. Now that I look back, dark side classes really had it easy back then, huh? And the indicator for this used to be this. Luckily, they did. Don't worry, I didn't forget daily bosses. Arcarium, along with his Pink Bean-esque ability spamming now, used to also not have a safe zone during his screen crack FMA. The only way to survive back then without iframing was to lead him towards one side, then sprint towards the other when he casts. If he stayed in the middle, well. While just a minor inconvenience, Renmaru used to have multiple HP bars with an iframe of waiting in between. It's like today's Pink Bean, but a little more annoying, with 5 HP bars instead of 3. Apparently, it was for a DPS check mechanic where he charged up an attack at 10% HP each HP bar, as seen here with today's 1 HP bar. And a more recent example for the final boss, Saren. Newer Maplers probably think, how in the world does ducking dodge these Sun Slash attacks in Saren's Sunset phase? Well, including the Sword Rush attack in all phases, the first 2 Sun Slashes weren't always dodgeable by ducking. Before the Saren fight was a ducking simulator, these attacks used to be avoided by upjumping, or staying near her to dodge behind. The problem with the latter was that she used to have contact damage, a lethal combination with the healing restrictions in Sunset, so Nexon made these attacks duckable and removed contact damage for classes with less utility. There were also a lot of minor sunlight gauge, phase 2 phase timers, and other quality of life changes which would take way too long to go over. Now, for some general boss mechanics that Nexon changed. There was an era where bosses had shared party lives. While this was somewhat beneficial for parties with skill disparity, the average lives per person made it worse than today's individual lives. I know it was brought back with Kaling, but players are usually more experienced at that stage, so hopefully not too much pub party griefing. Oh shoot, I'm red dotting. Time to... I mentioned the old abnormal status resistance in my last video, when it used to be a % chance to negate a status ailment. To elaborate, it was easy for some classes to reach 100% chance to negate statuses back then, with a setup like this, so a lot of the older bosses' mechanics could be ignored. Notably, Crimson Queen's Fire, Cygnus' Polymorphs, and whatever mess Pink Bean was and still is. If status resistance was a % to negate now, wow, would some bosses be cakewalks with just a few alterations. And last and probably least, EXP loss on death from bosses. Once upon a time, the penalty for dying was losing a flat % of EXP. The issue though, was that this extended to bosses without a life system. This included Hearthilla, Cygnus, Arcarium, Old Pink Bean, and Golux for some reason. So, the strategy for struggle boss runs was to either run with 0% EXP, or stock up on safety charms. Imagine if it still existed today, and for getting a safety charm, bam, over 5 hours of grinding, deleted. That about wraps it up. Let me know if this type of content was enjoyable. I can't only do super obscure tips and tricks forever. Until next time, stay